Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to Sally Talk. Oh my gosh, it's only 10:05. I really wasn't thinking I was going to pull this off. I'm doing this via Skype now because of my injuries, and it's been good because it's pushed me out of my comfort zone to make me learn new technology. And at 56, it's always good to learn new technology. So we figured it out, and we figured it out like just before time to go on. So everybody who tunes in right at 10, thanks for patiently waiting for me to come in. Before I get to my wonderful guest, AnGele Cade, who I'm so excited to have, I wanted to do a couple things. So an update on my injuries is that it looks like the left hand will be free a week from Tuesday, hopefully. And right wrist, we're still watching. And it might just get a wrist cast, which would make which would be lovely. So anyway, but I'm continuing. I'm not going to let it stop me because, you can't. And other people have a lot worse things to deal with. So mine will heal. So I'm grateful for that. Before I get started, I'll do my plug for my sponsor, which is me. For 39 years, Arbonne International has looked out for you. When our founder created and formulated our products, he was worried about the trend in the skincare and then eventually nutrition lines of where it became kind of like a garbage dump for a lot of excess byproducts from other things like petroleum and, crude oil byproducts, animal byproducts. And he didn't want humans to suffer from that. So he figured out a way to formulate and mass produce botanically based, best of science and nature, and to make the healthiest product out there. So we don't have to come out with a new line because we've cleaned it up. It's always been clean. If you have any information or you'd like to kind of have me sit down and go over things that you could possibly switch out in your house, I'd be happy to do that. sallyholida.arbonne.com, sallyholida.arbonne.com. Okay, so I'm so excited to get my guest going, and it's going to be fun listening to us talk because she's awesome. So AnGele Cade is I met her at a networking event, just like I've met a couple of mine, Stacy Demolsky, who was on last week. We have a really great networking group with a lot of really interesting business women, and I've just enjoyed meeting all of them. And so AnGele was the one who was doing the presentation at my first meeting. And she's going to tell you what she does, but she'll take your business and let you know what you need to do with it. She's a business advisor, but there's so much more to her, and she was just so on it. And I was sitting there going, "Wow, when I'm MVP at Arbonne, I know exactly who is going to manage my LLC." I was like, "That's the girl." So we've gotten to know each other, and there's so much more to her. She's really amazing. So I was like, I want to share her with everyone. So you're here. So AnGele, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited to be a part of your podcast world and everything that you have going on. You're such a beautiful person and really have so much to share with the world. So thank you so much for inviting me on.
You're so great. And she was the lucky recipient of the AnGeles. We were just talking about it before we do like a thing, a raffle, and I raffled off some Arbonne AnGeles, and she was telling me about how she put them on.
Yes. And so we, at the group, we actually have a nonprofit that we sponsor. And so it was really nice. And so I bought some tickets, and I usually never win. And so this one week I actually won, and it was those AnGeles. And it was so funny because everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, you don't need them." And I'm like, "I wear makeup." So let's see what these things can do. And so I used them. It was it's a wonderful little a shape that actually just sits under the eye with the cream on it. And so you just kind of lay it on your eye, so it feels almost just spa like at night, and just a little bit of extra self-care, which is a lot of times something that we don't take a lot of time for, just self-care, especially being so busy and working so much. And so it's nice when I got it, it kind of, it made me pause and just kind of take care of myself just a little bit more. And so I enjoyed it as an exercise. And when I woke up, I was like, not so puffy.
Well, you do have
so
you do have a
not so
busy
dark.
life. Yeah, you were telling me that your husband's out of town, and you're starting to realize how much he does around the house. But you guys, so tell us a little bit about like your business, and let's get started because I wanted to share with that. So share a little bit about what you do for a living.
So, our business is Executive on the Go, and basically, about 17 years ago, we had started this business servicing small businesses throughout, California, throughout the country, in helping them get started. But the reality is, for me, the background or the journey of where my business actually started, it started in the work that I was doing when I was in college. I was a counselor for many years, where we counseled from a holistic perspective. And what that means is that when we were counseling people on graduating from college, we realized that we couldn't negate their financial acumen, their emotional state, their physical, body or health or wellness. Like, there was a holistic approach to how we were counseling, and this was through the academic supports program on the campus of UCLA when I was there. And in that type of style of counseling, it really came into how I counsel my clients to this very day. I attribute to that. And then after I graduated from college, I worked as a director of this program on campus for a few years. And then I worked for an attorney. And when I worked for this attorney, he specialized in collections. And so that began to add to my knowledge base in terms of asset protection, liability separation, corporate, credit, what it meant to really be separate, what it meant to be protected, what it meant to, really have that corporate veil. Because at my job with this attorney, it was about piercing the veil. So in the exercise of understanding how to pierce it, I also understood how to protect it, the people who we couldn't touch, what we couldn't do. So all of that knowledge base I gained while I was there, I didn't realize that it was all going to be for a reason for me to educate and empower my clients now. And then after, for those of you that are in LA and know anything about our glorious 405, I hated it. And so and so the attorney's office was in Beverly Hills and I was in the Valley, and I was trucking that commute every day, and you feel like you lose your mind and like your life on that 405. Like, you just think about all the other things you could be doing in the world other than sitting on that parking lot. And so having to leave at, ungodly hours of the morning to try to beat it. And then, it's just too much time away from home. And so I ended up working for a CPA that was in the Valley. And that's where kind of the fun began to start around structures and entities and corporations and LLCs and DBAs and business licenses and seller's permits and all the things that seem daunting and overwhelming and confusing, and all the paperwork that you would just look to hire someone to do. That is what we did in our office. And so I was the controller for this firm for years. And basically, my boss at the time was hired on as the CFO for an IPO, which is an initial public offering. So someone was, building a company. They were going through the process of it becoming public. So they were doing a lot of fundraising. And when you do fundraising at that level, your investors need to be accredited, and you have to go through this process. Well, anyway, he just kind of disappeared from his practice. And so in the trenches of me keeping the practice going and learning what I needed to service the clients, I really got an accelerated education on all of the components that kind of make the business work from that paperwork standpoint. And he actually specialized in Nevada entities and Wyoming entities and, different tax strategies. And so a lot of that I got while I was there. And towards the end of my working there, he worked for this IPO. He wasn't coming into his practice, And I was managing also the IPO where they had raised $9 million in 6 months, didn't realize that a lot of the guys didn't know what they were doing, or they were taking advantage of investors, and basically at the end had lost all of the money. And my boss at the time, he didn't come back into the office. I had to let everyone go. I myself didn't get paid. And I was angry. I had entrusted my career and that particular path and really my family's livelihood to someone else, in believing that they were going to show up when I needed them. And when I reached out to him, his wife, he said he was going to come. He didn't show up. I ended up just, writing a Dear John letter and leaving it there with my key. And when I didn't get paid, I went to the labor board. I won a judgment. I wanted to collect. I took it to an attorney. And this is where the story changes for me in my journey. I took it to an attorney, and the attorney says to me, he says, "AnGele, I've seen this a lot. I'll be able to get you the money. This is horrible that this is happening to you, but don't worry." And then a few days later, when we reconnected, he says to me, I can't get you that money. And I said to him, "Why? I know where he is. I know where he lives. I know his social. I know how to get him. He owes me this money." And he says, "When I looked everything up, when I navigated through everything, the business owes you the money. And the way that this is structured, I cannot touch him." And I said to the attorney, I said, well, I did all the structures. I'm the one who set everything up. I've been here for years. I set it up. I'm telling you, I know this and that. He says, "Well, little lady," this is what he said to me at the time, because of course this is like 20 years ago. He goes, "Well, little lady, you did a great job because I can't touch him and we can't connect anything to him." And then the light bulb went off. I mean, it just lit up in my brain that, oh my gosh, all of the hard knocks, all of the education, all of the late nights, all of the information, all of the seminars, all of the talking, all of the client problems, all of the issues, all of the confusions, everything that I had learned and went through and experienced to that very moment culminated to this opportunity where all of a sudden I had the fullness of information that could actually help someone. Everything that had happened by accident and by chance up until that moment was used for, in that experience, he used it for evil. He used it for something bad. They used it to take advantage. I realized that in the right hands with the right people, if they understood what they had, they could use it for good.
I love that. Exactly. I love that.
And that is where Executive on the Go started. When I left the firm, literally, I would have to say at least 50% of the clients that were on management contracts with us at the time, they searched for me to continue to service them because they loved the way that I work. And it was those clients, it was the solution that I was providing that caused them to raise their hand to say, "You know what, we want you to service us." And so that initially I was the executive that was going to them. And so that's where Executive on the Go came from. And then over the years, it just started to change into the services that we offer now and the clients that we're able to serve now. And then my husband had joined me about 3 years after that happened. And that's when we officially had started the company and began to service the clients that we have. Over the last 17 years, we've serviced close to 15,000 clients in California, throughout the country, and we have a few international clients on some special projects. But it's been our privilege to educate and empower our clients on a higher level so that they can understand what they have and they could use it properly.
It's such an amazing story. But the thing I hear in it, when you tell that story, I love it. What I hear about it is that you made a choice to see what good you could take out of it. See, that's what I like about you. Because when I talked to you and when we had our big long coffee too, it was like, that's where you get to these points in your life and then you go, okay, what's the sign here? How can I move forward? And you
Yeah.
could have easily just said, oh, oh, I made a huge mistake. You could have beaten yourself up. You could have said, I got to completely change careers, da, da, da. But it was great how you took it and you used it as confidence building for you to go, oh, I could walk in and I could help anybody now. Like now I know exactly boy, do I know what I'm doing. I just think that's cool,
Yeah. Yeah.
that
And
you, go ahead.
I think that it's like you said, I think it's a life, it becomes a life lesson of how we kind of respond when things happen to us, and we make a decision. Like you said, it's a choice,
Mm-hmm.
and over again we're faced with opportunities to choose, to go a certain way. We have opportunities to choose, ourselves, our vision, our ambition. We have opportunities to, take risk on, things that we believe. And it's just, in those moments, and you don't know it when it's happening to you. When it's happening to you, you just feel, confronted, or you feel, like you are, you might feel pushed, or it might not feel, it's not always planned.
Right.
But it is always an opportunity to choose, something, bigger and greater, and forward flowing towards your greater vision, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm. And that we could segue over to with your son, because I feel like that's your journey with your son. You have a wonderful, and every time I hear a story about him, I just love him more. He's adorable. I can't wait to meet him. But every challenge that you faced with him, he has special needs. You always see to kind of, all right, well, now what can I do? Now what can I do? Forward thinking, And
Yeah.
so tell everybody a little about him, because I love hearing about him.
Well, I love talking about him. He's my heart, and so it's perfect. I think that, there's, when I talk about my son, for me, it's a bigger story because, like a lot of women, I've had issues with, pregnancies and losses, over the years. And when I was pregnant, this last time, which was 10 years ago, when I was pregnant with twin boys. And I remember when I found out that I was pregnant with twin boys, I felt a relief. I felt like finally I was going to, it was like redemption. It felt like
Mm-hmm.
this great, win was going to be finally in my corner. And it was a very high risk pregnancy, and I was looked at very closely. But something took a turn where, in just like in prior pregnancies, I had go into preterm labor. And so very early on in the pregnancy, I had signs of going into labor, and I had a horrible stint with the hospital where literally they were just felt like I was going to lose them. There was nothing they could do. I literally forced them to check me into the hospital, and I was in the Trans-Littenberg position for as many days as I could take it. And what that meant was that I was in a bed with my legs in the air as much as I could to hang on to the bed. Like literally, like it was angled where my legs were as angled as possible in the air. I was fighting heartburn. I was fighting like
Oh my gosh.
headaches. But and it wasn't even anything that was scientific. It's something that they do in effort to just hang on to the pregnancy so that you're not putting any pressure on the cervix. And so I started to dilate, and it was too late to do anything like a cerclage or anything like that. So I'm in the hospital. I've got a calendar next to my bed, and I'm literally praying and crossing off every day, like one more day, stay pregnant, one more day, stay pregnant. And I got to, it was, it was funny. I was in one hospital, and because I was pregnant with twins, this is a funny story. The doctor, the head of the neonatologist department, broke her foot. And when she broke her foot, it changed the ratio of available specialists at that hospital. And because I was pregnant with twins, I took them over their ratio, and they had to transfer me to another hospital, which was the best thing that ever could have happened. Because when
Wow.
they transferred me to this other hospital, they believed in the fight with me for hanging on to them. Whereas where I was, they were so negative. I mean, literally, they sent someone from the finance department that told me that the insurance was no longer going to pay because the pregnancy wasn't viable. And I was just like, wouldn't leave the bed. And I'm like, I am not going home to miscarriage at home. I'm not going to do that. I want to stay here and fight for them. And literally,
Wow.
when I changed hospitals, I told them what I wanted, and that doctor looked at me and said, whatever we can do to make that happen, we'll do it. And they started me on a round of steroid shots that they to help develop their lungs a little faster so that they would have a better chance. I got to 23 weeks and 3 days.
Wow.
And I gave birth to both boys. And I was I was bleeding and they couldn't stop the bleeding. I went into surgery. I was in the ICU. I didn't see them for I want to say it was 3 days before I saw them. They were in the NICU. They took them. I gave birth to them. They took them, and both of them had survived the birth and were in the NICU fighting every single day. So about 2 weeks after my youngest son suffered an infection in the hospital, and when they're that small, they go what they call septic very fast because the infection spreads very quickly all over their body. When they were born, they were 1 pound 3 ounces, very very tiny,
So unbelievable, tiny. Yeah,
tiny. And so then we just had our oldest son was still there fighting, and so all of our energy, all of our focus shifted to him. And we were in a race, and we were, it was 6 months in the hospital. It was over 9 surgeries. The last one was at Children's Hospital. He had what was called, as he got bigger and older and grew, and we had wins and we had some, different issues and things. I mean, he had everything that you can imagine, and he was at risk for everything. So everything from brain bleeds to his vision. He was at risk of being blind. He already had laser surgery. Everything he did, we celebrated. Oh my gosh, he pooped, we celebrated. He turned his head, we celebrated. We were like, oh, there's a thing. We celebrated. Like everything was a celebration. We're like, oh my gosh, we're winning, And the doctors just thought we were crazy because they were just like, this is at risk, and what happened to your first son, and this would probably happen. And I know they say what they say, but my God, we didn't resolve. We didn't sit with what they said. We just hung on to what we were hoping for and what we were believing, and any signs of strength that he gave us. And he would give us these momentous wins along the way. Last thing that he was facing, and it was devastating. It was called dying spells. And basically what would happen is he would just be laying there, and he would all of a sudden turn blue, stop breathing, and they would have to resuscitate him. And literally we got to the place where that was the only thing wrong, that all of a sudden he would turn, and they literally took us into a class, taught us how to resuscitate a baby, and were getting ready to discharge him. And I said, are you kidding me?
Oh my
I am
gosh.
not taking him home like this. And they were like, well, we're checking to see if his trachea maybe is collapsing or something. I'm like, he's still in here. It was 6 months. They were sick of me. I was, you know what I mean? Like, it was just, and I'm like, but we're not going until he's like whole and complete.
Right.
So anyway, so they did a test, and they found out that his heart, everything, he's such an anomaly. His heart is rotated to the right. And so his aorta was wrapped around his trachea. So when he laid on his back, it would collapse it and close the airway.
Oh my gosh.
And so no one figured this out until they did a MRA. So they were doing MRIs, and so they did an MRA, and they saw something pulsating, and they were like, that shouldn't be there. And then they realized what had happened. So now he's on a waiting list to go to Children's Hospital Cardiology, and the waiting list is 6 months.
Wow.
So, but you know me, I've got everybody's cell phone. So I call a doctor over at Children's Hospital. And I'm like, hey, remember me? And he tells me this little secret. He says, AnGele, he said, you know what? He says, there's no way to get in front of that waiting list. He said, but I will tell you this, if you get him into the hospital, cardiology will have to come and see him. So I said, so I got him transferred into the Children's Hospital's NICU, because the NICU where he was at could no longer service him, was my argument.
Oh,
so I got him
wow.
into the NICU, and then that's how he got there. And so there's all these instructions, like, don't put him on his back, don't do this, don't do that. So he's transferred there. We're like the hovering parents. He gets there. We're looking at him through the glass door, and literally everything in the instructions that we tell them not to do, that was sent from the other NICU, they completely ignore it. And they do everything. They put him on his back. They do all the, and there is a bunch of doctors around, and I am yelling at the glass, and the poor little nurse on duty is like, the doctors know what they're doing. We need you to calm down. I was like, no, they don't. Beep, beep, beep. I need you to fix the, you know what I mean? Like, so we're yelling at the window, and he goes into a dying spell in front of them.
Oh,
and
my
I
God.
and I catch eye contact with the doctor, and I said, if anything happens to him, I will beep beep beep. Right? So they are like, so they're doing everything they can to resuscitate him, of course, and it happens. And I'm thinking, me and my husband are like, we're going to jail, you know? And so, because we've been fighting for 6 months for his life, and here we are at the home stretch, at the place that's supposed to save him, and this happens. And I tell you, it is only in retrospect that you can look at something and know that it was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Because for that to happen at that moment was perfect. Because within 2 hours, guess who came down to see him? Cardiology.
Yeah, right. Because it showed everybody what was wrong.
Exactly. We didn't have to wait. It didn't have to be conjured. It wasn't pretend. It wasn't on a report.
Mm-hmm.
They all saw it. And cardiology came down. And it's so funny because you might not believe this, but it is actually to the date. I'm looking at the date, and I'm literally about to cry, because it was on this date when he was in Children's Hospital, and it was literally wow. It was literally 9 years ago on September 29th, which is my birthday, that he had the procedure, which is called an aortopexy. There's only a dozen of them had been done in the country. So we've been on this. So only a dozen have been done on the country. The doctor who did it is the one who like leads it. Andon is in like the medical books, because he had so many different things they had to deal with while they were going in, where they literally had to take the aorta, take it and lift it and attach it to something inside his chest. So the sternum wall, the muscle, the rib, they didn't even know what they were going to attach it to. So they go in there and they have to attach it to it so that it's not pressing against the trachea. And they didn't even know if it was going to solve the problem. But I promise you, he had this surgery, and they gave us no promises. And within 2 weeks, he was like a brand new baby. It was as if he had just been born and everything about him had been perfect. Within a month, he was breathing on his own, and we brought him home, and he has never been back to the hospital since.
Oh my gosh, I have chills. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's like the Blue Baby. You know, there's a great movie. It was on HBO. It was with Alan Rickman and Mos Def. I'm always bringing up movies, so that's just. But it's my show, so I get to do that.
Yeah.
and Mos Def, who's fantastic in it, and anyway, it's all about the doctor that invented the open heart surgery on babies, because in the 60s, the 50s, my oldest sister had a hole in her heart, and she passed away at a month. So when she was a month old, and it was because she was a blue baby. So it's different, but it's still the heart. And they wouldn't allow heart surgery then, because it was called Something the Lord Made, because they believed that If God wanted surgery done on a baby, there wouldn't be, it was this weird argument over it between science and faith,
Yes.
and this doctor really argued it. So he's the first person to perform open heart surgery on babies. And the same thing, they would just do this surgery, and then the babies they'd go from being blue to being pink, they would just, or just healthy, going from being unhealthy to healthy dramatically just because of helping the heart. So that just reminded me of that.
Yeah.
But and my mother, I showed that movie to my mother, and my mother was upset, but it was in a good way, but she was happy that they were able to figure it out. But it was literally a year after my mother's baby passed away because they didn't do that then,
Yeah.
So I'm sure that's the forerunner of just them being able to go in and do it at all. But that's an amazing story. So he's 10 now, right?
Yeah, he's 9.
Oh, he will be 10. Yeah, he will be 10.
Yes, he will be 10. And so he's 9, and he just he's in the 3rd grade. He loves his Nintendo Switch. He loves his cell phone. He loves to sing. He just joined the school choir, which we didn't even know they had one, but he joined it and is singing at a golf tournament, a fundraiser for his school next week. And he's quite the personality. We are so just in love with just the parts of him that we get to experience. He's really a gift to us. And he has some things that are delayed, and he has different things that kind of go on for him in terms of processing, but his heart is so pure, and he's so full of love, and he's so discerning of people. He's the guy who, we're eating dinner in a restaurant, and he catches eye contact and sees somebody's having a birthday, and he goes over and says happy birthday and gives them a hug. He's the one who, as we're leaving, he catches eye contact with the older couple in the corner, and he's like rendering high fives, like
Oh, so cute.
So it's just a special thing to bring to the world. And it's a part of my advocating for him as we navigate through the systems and the systems and politics and agencies and services and things that he needs, and therapy and friends and just all those things. I feel like it's awakened me to a part of the world that I feel like is lost a lot of times because we're so busy. We don't stop to look at each other in the eye. We don't stop to say hi. He's very intentional, and he's much, a lot of times when you deal with kids that have, autism or processing disorders or different things, a lot of them don't give eye contact, or they're not social. Whereas, Andin is very social, and it made me realize how cold the world can be. And it made me really kind of stand in a place for him when he says hi, when he sees another kid and he says hi and the other kid doesn't respond. There's a few things going on for him. He doesn't necessarily get visual cues because he has a visual impairment. He's very, very nearsighted, and he wears glasses. And so he has to get really up close to kind of see what's going on. But if he tells somebody he's a kid, in which he can tell, he's like, oh, hi. And I'll hear him do it, and I'll watch the other kid, and the other kid might not give him eye contact or see it, but there's an adult there. And I think to myself, as an adult, I would encourage my child to say hi to another child. I think that's a good or friendly thing to do. And I find myself kind of standing in a gap, like saying, hi, little one. Hi, princess. Oh, you have such a cute kid. My son said hi. Oh, little da-da-da, say hi. So I'm kind of always, facilitating warmer conversations. And usually when I do, it jars the adult out of the pace or out of the thinking that they're in, or out of the thing that they're, busy focusing on. Not that they're not friendly or caring, or even not that they don't want to say hi. They just don't notice. They're not listening. They're not awake. They're not present.
I was just going to say, not present. Yeah.
And so I've seen myself kind of work harder to jar people to be present because I want them to be engaging with my son. But in that personal kind of life lesson, it's caused me to pause and be present myself in my own world. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm just so grateful for the gift and the lessons that he's giving me along the way.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. That was one of the things with my children was that I always wanted them to, because people don't realize how simple that is of having them teaching your children to look at somebody in the eye and say hi to them and respond, and having that kind of interaction, because as they get a little bit older, they get a lot of positive reinforcement for that.
Hmm.
Adults really will kind of go, oh, hi. Oh, aren't you a nice young man? Oh, da, 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 da. And it really does give them a lot of positive reinforcement. It like feeds on itself, of being
Yes.
kind and being nice. And it's such a simple thing. And I agree with you. I don't think people mean it. They just aren't present. They're not thinking.
Yeah.
And I always talk to, it's funny because I've worked with children. I've had my own children, my 4 children, but then also I've worked with children for a long time, ever since my kids were little. And so I feel like it's a whole secret world. If you stop and you talk to children, it's magical.
Hmm.
And children will look at you and they go, oh, you're one of those people that like sees
Oh yeah.
us.
Oh
You
yeah.
know what I mean? And
You're very discerning.
yeah, I think, and even
Oh,
babies. So
especially.
like somebody has a stroller and you look down into that and you go hi, and you take more than just a second, like you really look at that baby. The baby will look up. I practice it all the time. Will look up and go, oh, you see me. It's
Hmm.
part of, like, I think the fabric of the world. You're like
Oh,
recognizing what we're all here for is to acknowledge each other and how we're all connected.
I think a part of that I want to say is why why I think it's easy for me to like connect with you and just your energy, because you definitely flow in a space that is with discernment and with connecting with people. And I tell other people all the time, because we have to use language in our communication, it can get in the way, whereas the energy, or like you said, the look, the intent, like you're very good at that, and every time when you get up and when you are in your space and somebody's in the space with you, they can feel that, and it's very authentic and it's very transparent and it comes from a pure place, and that speaks so much louder and has such a stronger volume than just the words that we say, because people say stuff all the time.
Right. It's
people
really
people
true.
you know people talk about stuff all the time, but if you don't feel it, if it isn't consistent with their energy, if it's not from an authentic place, if you don't see it in their eyes, then all of a sudden you disconnect, because you feel like, well, that's not pure, or that's not real, or you don't really care, or you're not spending this moment with me. You're waiting for me to stop so you can give me your stuff.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Right. Well, I feel that way about you too. But
Oh, thank you.
I'm sure your son picked up on that from you. But
Hmm.
also it sounds to me like he's just like channeling,
Hmm.
how we're really supposed to be. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing. There are these children, and I think the adults can squelch that, in a
Hmm.
child.
Oh yeah.
But I think children have that. They're pulling. They got all this DNA from millions of years in them, and I think they know kind of how to be, and that's where you have to be careful not to squelch it. But
Yeah.
that's why they're such a good a read of people, and
Hmm.
if you
Yeah.
allow it to flourish.
Absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
I
They don't
want
have all
I
that stuff in the way like
Yeah,
we do.
I want this is a perfect segue into your nonprofit, because I want to hear about your charity. So this is what I love about you, is that you have so many facets. And I when you and we were at the end of our conversation and you were like, "Oh, I have this nonprofit." And I really want you to talk about that, because it's such a great, I mean, talk about being the change, you saw something and you said,
Yeah.
"Oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'll do this." And tell us about that.
I have a about let's see here, 7 years ago, with one of my dear friends from college. We had said, all in college for me was many many moons ago, and I remember when we were young, we said we were going to do something together, and we didn't know what it was going to be. And about 7 years ago, we had a chance to have a conversation, and basically kind of realize some things that were similar in what our desires were. And so in it, we created an organization called Cali Now, and Cali is CALE. And it stands for Culture, Arts, and Leadership Exchange. And so it was birthed out of this idea that we needed to equip our young people that were in underserved communities to become global leaders. And the only way they were going to aspire for global leadership is with the exposure of other cultures. And so our kids are just in a mode of survival. And so they're just trying to survive their circumstance and their life. They're not thinking about, traveling to Europe for the summer. They're not thinking about, taking a train to, through Italy. They're not contemplating, the language that of their grandparents. They're not, they're not doing those things. Our kids are just in a mode of survival. And we thought, God, if we could give them this gift, if we could give them this exposure, how much better would the world be? And so, so for me, what it is that I'm originally from a small island called St. Kitts. That's where I was born. I was born in the West Indies. Both my parents are West Indian. My father also from St. Kitts, my mother from AnGele. So I'm a small island girl. And I left St. Kitts when I was about 3.5 years old, and we moved to Canada. And I went to Quebec. So I grew up in the French part of Canada in Montreal, and I lived in Saint Laurent. And that's where I got my basic schooling. And we were a French speaking family. And we spoke English, but it was very broken, to say the least. It was very broken, but we did speak English, and it was our version of English, and very much so. But my formal learning, schooling for elementary school was in French. And then my father got transferred to California, which is the furthest away any of my family is. And so my dad has 6 sisters. As you can imagine, I was the oldest grandchild. My mom has 7 sisters and 3 brothers. So I come from very big families with lots and lots of cousins. Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge.
And so we were venturing out here by ourselves. And so when we moved out here, I was a teenager, and I was in those preteen years, which are very impressionable and very hard, because you are dealing with fitting in and wanting to fit in and wanting to be enough and wanting to be pretty and wanting to be loved and wanting to be cool and wanting to be all of those things. And when I got here, I was the new kid. But not only was I the new kid, I was the new Black kid. And so the other groups didn't necessarily gravitate to me. And then because I was the new Black kid that spoke French, the Black kids didn't gravitate to me because I was the outcast, and I spoke funny and I acted funny. And what am I talking about? And, your name's not AnGele, it's AnGele. What, you know what I mean? So I heard and got teased, and it was very, very hard for me. And when it's hard for a kid at that age, which is a part of why we target kids ages 11 to 14. That is our age range. Those are the kids that we focus on. It's an age range that gets overlooked a lot of times. We always focus on the first 5, the little kids, while they're still cute. And then they go through this awkward stage, 11 to 14. And we target that because it was at that age that I felt the most pain and experienced the most hurt in my life. When I came here and wanted to fit in, I stopped practicing French. I wanted to engage in the slang. I wanted to be cool. I wasn't getting along with my mom. I ran away from home. I actually ended up joining a gang. And at a week before my 14th birthday, when I was 13 years old, I got shot in the upper right chest. And
it's just unbelievable.
It really stopped me in my tracks, because I began to realize that if something did not change, that I was really headed down a very predictable slope. I had ditched school so much that I was absent 60 days from my homeroom. I statistically should not have graduated from high school, much less go to college. And it was at that time that I actually had met a guy on the bus, and he saw me and he thought I was cute, and he was coming from track practice, and we started to talk, and he was a little young, and he was, really kind of, he was like a cute boy next door, but I thought he was really cute. And he says to me, he says, I really don't like your friends. It doesn't seem to match who you are. And he just kind of saw me, and we started to talk, and I had an opportunity to change schools. I had an opportunity we were moving, and I had an opportunity to kind of start over. And it was in that relationship, it was in that friendship, it was in that time that I was just given an opportunity to redesign who I was. And when I got to this new school, it was funny because it was at a time where the teacher wouldn't let me in the class. They said there were too many kids. She didn't have enough seats. She didn't have enough books. And so they were rejecting me from these classes. And the counselor at the time was frustrated. And she said, well, let me send you to this other class. And it was funny. As she got to know me, she was just like, your transcripts don't match who you are. So I would get that a lot. Mm-hmm. And then she put me in these magnet classes. And it was funny because it was a new magnet program, and she was also the magnet counselor, but no other teacher in the regular class would take me. So the only class that had room was this magnet class. And technically it happened 4 times that day, every time she sent me to a class. So if you had at least 3 magnet classes, you were technically in the magnet program. So here was an opportunity where I bypassed the 218 people who were on the waiting list for this magnet program, that I just got in because I had the magnet counselor as a counselor, and everyone else rejected me. Wow. And it was in that rejection that I was put into this program where I went from, I had all F's and 1 D, and my D was in PE, to the next semester with this focus, with this new friend, and with this counselor, I had all A's and 1 B. The B was in PE. And I went on from that point forward where I had AP classes, I had straight A's. I ended up being my class valedictorian. And in my college essay, I would have to explain what happened that first semester. I would explain how I got shot. I would explain how my life was interrupted. I would explain how somebody saw me and didn't just allow me to sit in a space where I was rejected, but put me someplace that had purpose. And I was part of the first graduating class of the law and government magnet of my high school, and then went on to, graduate from UCLA. And that friend that said that I didn't match and that I was cute and that I was worth something else actually was my high school sweetheart, who is actually now my husband of 20 years.
Oh my gosh, I love that story so much. I can't even tell you. I love that story so much. It's just so beautiful, and it's just so powerful because it's out of rejection, It's out of adversity is where we find our clues, right?
Yeah.
Out of our chaos is where we find our clues,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
To navigate through. And so now you want to be that kind of like spark in these children so how is it that you select these children and what do you do for them?
So basically we have our website, calenow.org, CALE now, NOW.org, and we do applications. We take applications for our kids. We basically, it's a selection process where they fill out the application. We ask them for some type of referral from a teacher, from somebody in the community. Our kids are not perfect. We're not looking for kids with great grades. We're not looking for kids that have already made it. Those kids are on a different track. We're looking for kids that just need a little extra push. We're looking for kids that just need to be interrupted a little bit in their life so that they can understand their value and see themselves. We've developed an 8-week curriculum that deals with them holistically, exposing the kids to their relationship with money, to their self-esteem, to community service, to the social climate. We talk to them about a culture in the world. So every year it's a different culture, and we expose the kids to the food. You don't realize how much food and music and these things have an impact on our kids. We have kids that only eat processed food.
Yeah.
We had one group of kids one year when we took them, and one of the girls, she didn't want to try anything, but our agreement with them in the beginning is that they try it.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you, when this girl tasted curry, you would have thought we saved her life. She was like, "Oh my God, where has this been my whole life?" And it was amazing. I mean, these kids light up. Like, we've taken kids all over the world. I mean, we've taken kids to Ireland. And to prepare them for it while they're here with us in the 8 weeks, we might go to the Irish fair. We might go to an Irish restaurant. They experience the bangers and mash. They experience, the Irish dance. And when we go there, they're able to compare it, and they're able to pick what they want, and they're already acclimated. And so we give them this experience. And our program, we give scholarships where at minimal or no cost to the parent, we culminate at the end of the 8 weeks to take the kids to the country that we've been studying. And so in our work, we've had sponsors, we've had private donors, we've had corporate sponsors, but in our work, we focus 100% on those kids. All of our speakers, all of our supporters, everyone that does the classes, everyone volunteers. And so we give ourselves to these kids because we know if we can inspire them now, if we can change them now, it could change the entire trajectory for the rest of their life. We have a group of kids that we took to Singapore a few years ago, and these kids are talking about doing exchanges in college and going all over the world because they've seen it, they've tasted it, they want more of it. And we realize that if we give it to them now at that age, that spark could create something amazing. We took a group of kids to Peru. We were in Lima and Cusco. And when we took them and we went into the mountain region, and the thing is we show the kids what poverty looks like in other countries. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of them believe that they don't have enough. They believe that they are limited or that they are less than. And when we take them into the countries, I remember one young man, we took him into Peru, and we were going into the mountain regions, and we were learning about these farm areas and where quinoa is grown and all the stuff. We were in this community, and he looked and he said, "Miss AnGele," he said, "there's no door on this house." And he says, "Where's the bathroom?" And I said to him, "There is no door." And I said, "The bathroom?" I said, "It's out there." And he stopped for a moment, and I saw in his face he was taking it in, because he didn't know, his mom had told me he had been complaining because he had to share a room with a sibling. He was frustrated because he felt like their place was too small. He was embarrassed to have anyone come over and play. And she said when he came home from that trip, and this parent is still a volunteer to this day, she said when he came home, he was so grateful to be able to even close the door. He was so grateful for even having a bathroom inside. She said what you gave him was a gift of perspective that has changed our family. And I realized then that our work is not just about those kids, but it's about the families that they're connected to and the conversations that they're going to have for years to come that hopefully will change their life forever. And so that's the work that we do. And we do it in the summers, and our mission is to take kids all over the world. I remember being in Italy, and we were on a gondola, and one of the guys that were on the trip, he looked up at me, and it's funny because when you're in a different country, there's a different smell. There's a different
Mm-hmm.
smell, there's a different look. And so a lot of these kids, they've never experienced that. And he looked at me, and we were on the gondola, and we were going down the canal, and he looked up at me and he said, Miss AnGele, I feel like I'm dreaming. This is what he said to me. And I looked at him and I said, let's consider that maybe this is what it feels like to be awake.
Wow.
And I
Wow.
do it for those moments.
See, I've been in this thing about reality and how we live too much in reality,
Mm-hmm.
and how, when you talk about goal setting and you talk about dreaming, it's like, you're supposed to, what is it that, was it Nietzsche or somebody said, some famous philosopher said, whatever you dream, the how will present itself, like
Mm-hmm.
if you, whatever you think, you can achieve, and the how will come to you. Whatever you tell or ask for, the how will present itself. And I always feel like the how is reality. And we get so wrapped up in reality that we talk ourselves out of so many things. And
Mm-hmm.
like what you're doing for them is that you're giving them these things like, I want to go back, or I want to go to another country, or I
Mm-hmm.
want to, I can, because you've broken the veil. It's not
Mm-hmm.
impossible. You get on a plane, you go,
Yeah.
it's just a question of, and so instead of getting like caught up in all of the reality of, it's just like set your sight on what it is that you want to accomplish, and then the
Yes.
how presents itself. And so get
Absolutely.
out of the reality, right? Get
Yeah.
into the faith. And that's
I
what I
love
feel
that.
like. Yeah, I feel like that's what you're doing for them, is that you're giving them, you're opening when you open the horizon, it's obvious. You look at it and you go, well, yeah, it opens their horizons. But it's like, no, it opens the thought pattern so that you can aim higher, you
Yeah.
know?
I mean, one of the things we always say, me and my husband, we always say, you can only believe to the extent that you have knowledge. And for us, in this wise, you can only believe for something that you know exists, or that you know is like, you can only have a thought in something that you have seen or heard of, or like, you have to be exposed to it in some way. The only way that I could know that it's possible for me to be president as a woman is because I've seen women run. So I know it's possible for it to
Right,
happen. And
right.
then once it happens, then it becomes a new standard that, oh, I can be president. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just this idea that says, you know what, like you said, if I travel, or, if I'm able to accomplish this particular goal. And even in business, I love what you said about dreaming and reality, because a lot of people, they come to us at different phases of their lives to start businesses. People come, and sometimes they've been dormant because they felt like it was too late, and they didn't realize that they could start right now. One of our clients, which is so funny, she's going to be at the event, the senior event at the end of the month. Jacqueline Goldberg, Pink Lady, is actually one of our longest clients, and we did her nonprofit for her, and she started it after 70.
Wow. Yeah.
She came in and was like, I want to start this and do this. And this is after a time where most people have given up. They've retired their mind. They've retired their dream. And
Mm-hmm.
she is saying, I want to start this, and I want to serve this community, and I want to do this work. And we have been engaging with her and doing this work for years. And here she is, still doing it at 87. So the thing is that it's about looking at what it is that you have thought about doing, and saying, okay, am I ready to frame it? Am I ready to execute? Is it ready to happen? Who can I talk to? It's just the process of going down the road just a little bit further and saying, okay, it's time for me to frame this. It's time for me to structure it. It's time for
Mm-hmm.
me to prepare myself to actually do this work. I want to be ready to receive the blessing, the opportunity, the client, the contract when it comes. And it starts with me framing the work. And that's a part of in my business, what we help people do is just make sure that they're ready to receive. If you're getting ready to get a big check, you're getting ready to explode in your business, you want to be able to cover yourself in terms of your taking advantage of some tax liability or taking advantage of some of that separation or navigating through some of those opportunities with the formal structure, or just making sure that, hey, you're doing business as a business. It's not a hobby. It's not just you want to do the business, right. And so, for everyone, no matter what it is, we just want to make sure that they're taking into account what's possible for them in the structure for their business. It's a vehicle to take you where you want to go. And we want to be able to, solve those problems for you up front so that it's the best thing for you.
Wow. I think I've said wow like 13 times. But that to me is a good episode of a podcast, because I think that, you have a guest that is just so great that you just go, wow. Every time she says anything.
You're so sweet. You're so sweet. I'm honored to be in the space with you.
Oh,
and
well.
I would love to do this again.
Oh, please. I was just going to say, I was like, I hope you come back, because I want to honor your time. And I know we were going to do an hour. I like to stick it to an hour, because I know there's some podcasts out there that go 2.5 hours, and I'll listen to some of them and I'll go, oh, this one's a 2.5 hour one. I'm like, okay, that's a lot of commitment. But sometimes it's good. I mean, it's worth it. But no, I would love it if you would that would be great if you come back. I thank you so much for being on, and I was going to let you, I was going to say, tell us, but you did, what it is that you're asking or you offer there at the end. And so I just can't, I think once you want to do business with somebody who you think really is making a difference in the world, and it isn't just, you want to, like, I don't know, be part of it. So everyone's all, supporting each other. And your story is just so amazing. And like I said, it's so inspirational, because it's just at every roadblock, you just always pick, how do I aim higher? How do I overcome this? How do I make things better? And then just the fact that everything you went through in your childhood, that you were like, okay, now I can help kids. And the amount of kids that you've helped is just remarkable. So I definitely want to talk to you about we got to talk about the Arbonne Charitable Foundation. Yes. Maybe do a fundraiser or something like that. I wouldn't mind talking to them all about eating that processed food, because I love talking to kids.
I wouldn't mind bringing you to the kids and doing a session. So we'll have to
love to talk about that, because I used to do that at Boys and Girls Club. I used to love to talk about how men and women in white coats trick them by putting the flavors and the the additives and all that other stuff to get you to want more, so I could do that. So anyway, we could go on and on. So AnGele, thank you so much. You're awesome. And I hope you come back. Thanks everybody for listening. Next week is going to be Pastor Galen Gobin. And, the reason that I have asked him was that he was actually very helpful to me and very supportive after John passed away. And if anybody hasn't heard my earlier episodes about my going through and being a suicide loss survivor, Galen was great about reaching out to me and hooking me in with Dee Dee Hirsch and different organizations. He now is at Forest Lawn, and so he really helps people walk through the grieving process. He set up a few events that people have been going to, that friends of mine have been going to, as well as myself. I'm going to go to there's one coming up, I think, in November, and he organizes that. But anyway, he's very inspirational. He's very kind, and has a lot of great ideas about how to walk through grief, and grief can be in all different ways. So, it sounds like a sad episode, but it'll be a meaningful one. So I hope you tune in. So, that's it. So we're going to close now. So AnGele, thanks again. You're just awesome. This was great. And everybody have a good week. And hopefully, next week I'll still be in 2. I'm still going to be in casts, but maybe in 2 weeks I won't. But anyway, thanks everybody for tuning in, and talk to you soon.